Viewers and subscribers, welcome back again on this platform. This is BVI Channel 1, where I will tell you undiluted truth. People have asked me, what is it between me and Soludo? Why do I love this man so much? The simple answer to that question is, the man believes what I believe. Igbo land first. He is as much Igbo-centric as I am. Rebuilding Alibo as the main focus. And in 2017, while he was reviewing a book written by Chudi Ofodile, The Politics of Biafra and the Future of Nigeria, I want you to refresh on what he's captured there.
It's a great pleasure for me, really an honor, to be called upon to review this book, The Politics of Biafra and the Future of Nigeria, by the one and only Honorable Chudi Ofodile. If you want to hear from me, the summary of the review that I'm going to make is to simply say, read this book. If you haven't read it, you haven't read any book on Nigeria, on Biafra, and the road ahead in recent times. This current 36 structure is contrary to the instruments of surrender of Biafra. That there are three conditions that they agreed on the instruments of surrender. One of which was that the Biafrans accepted, said, we accept the current structure, which then was a 12-state structure. And that B or C of it was that any future change must bring all Nigerians on the table to agree. And that these were the things they signed at the instrument of surrender, but that the military unilaterally subsequently changed the structure without then the participation of the other side. And he argues that this is against the instrument of the surrender, and that no wonder the Southeast has been marginalized out of it, 5 states out of the others having 6 and 7, as the case may be. Now there is the issue of unitary fiscal federalism instead of the 1963 Republican Constitution on fiscal federalism. There is the expansive exclusive list and having overpowerful Abuja. The development process is a trickle down from Abuja to the rest instead of a bottom-up economic and development arrangement. The census and revenue allocation that disadvantages the Southeast. There is the citizenship question. The Igbos think they become visitors everywhere all over the country. When it is time for census, the Southeast complain that they are about the only ethnic group that have maybe a majority of their people living outside of their homeland. And that during census, their populations are counted in the states where they live. Imagine a state, and then population becomes basis for sharing the oil money in Abuja. When it is time for that, you count them in there, you don't ask for state of origin in the census. But then, you use also the population to get the allocations. But when it is time to share anything else, you remind them that they don't belong here, as the case may be. So there have been issues about citizenship question, and so on and so forth. So, in other words, this system, it's not just the Southeast or the Igbos that complain. It has not worked for Nigeria. And my thesis is that even if any government, including this one, just have all the political appointments from one village, my thesis is that the life of the average person in that village will not change. Just rewind it again, and think the other way. The last regime, we had an Ebele Azikiwe as president. We had secretary to government. We had minister of finance and coordinating minister on the economy. We had all of this, deputy senate president, this, that, and so on and so forth. Most of the financial institutions headed by people from the Southeast. And yet, there is no motorable federal highway in Igbo land. This thing is an elite game as far as I'm concerned. The issue of who and whatever and so on and so forth is not taking us anywhere. And unless we get to the heart of it. So, it seems that there is a consensus today. There is a consensus. If you take it much broadly, the North, so-called North, if you calculate the number of years they were in power, but essentially, poverty is still predominantly a northern phenomenon. So, that you control this and a few billionaires are made here and there and so on and so forth means absolute nothing. The ordinary man in Nigeria has not benefited, is getting worse off by the current system that we have. But there is a consensus now on restructuring. And in that case, Fordila would argue that Biafra becomes a metaphor for agitation by oppressed people for justice, equity, and fairness. It hasn't worked for anybody. Let the debate begin. What exactly do we mean by restructuring? The National Conference report, for example, is a beginning, but in my view, doesn't go much. It talks about creating more states, which misses the point. It's still more of the same. We are saying the ones that you have are not viable. 20-something states today cannot pay salaries. So what are we talking about? Or should we go back to the EQMS constitution, the proposal of 6 zonal structure as the federating units? What model of federation? Should we use the UAE, United Arab Emirates system, or which one are we going? Let us get to work and begin to think. Some people propose, and I agree, that we need a new constitution negotiated by the people of Nigeria. And my thesis is that if this is the only achievement of President Buhari, he would be the greatest statesman ever in the mode of Abraham Lincoln. But we need to get this done, that the people of Nigeria will have to get together and negotiate a new constitution for themselves. Second, or the third point, is leadership failure in Igbo land. It raises fundamental questions if you read Chude's book on the collapse of failure of leadership in Igbo land and the search for the new one, whatever. It's in that light it agitates your mind when we talk about Igbo presidency. What does that actually mean? Is it to have somebody wearing a red cap in the villa, or what? If all that we say, even within the states, a governor is first his village, his local government, then his senatorial zone, so that he can be Ochilo Ozwa of his own local government or his village, and so on and so forth, then let the others care. Is that the kind of leadership we are talking about Nigeria, or in the new Biafra, as it were? And we have seen it, like I said, about people occupying offices and so on and so forth, and still nothing. So the question is, the same contradictions in Nigeria are also there within Igbo land. We cry of marginalization at the larger Nigeria, but there is also cries of marginalization within. There is the identity question within. There is the citizenship and indigenship question within. How many other Igbos live in Aba and in Abia, for example? But, I don't know, 2 years or 3 years ago, that was the indigenship thing, that all non-Abia citizens were sacked from but these people had lived there, worked there, paid their taxes there. They were counted as part of Abia in the census. You collect revenue, more revenue because of them. But then, no, you can't work in there. You are not an indigent. So while we are pointing one finger there, ladies and gentlemen, look closely. The other three are saying, let's get it here. And so how can this new leadership emerge? And then of course the entry fee is very high. The fourth, the new Biafranism, and that is my last point. And let me say that Nigeria has wittingly or unwittingly dragged the Biafran issue from the periphery into the mainstream discussion. Nnamdi Kanu, in my view, threw a bait and Nigeria took it. Today, he is the most popular political prisoner and will end up either as a hero or a martyr. But to his credit, he has forced Nigeria and the world to discuss Biafra. I believe that keeping him there does not do Nigeria any good. I believe this young man should be released, and released like yesterday. I will not be surprised if he becomes a subject of the next political campaigns. Just like we dealt with Awolowo, who was convicted and imprisoned of treason, or Gowon, charged with treason, or even Ojukwu himself was forgiven, and so on and so forth. I don't want to make any predictions, but I believe we need to solve this. Because according to Ofodile, this book, quote, he said, the lesson to be learned, if anyone cares to listen, is that the detention of Nnamdi Kanu, no matter for how long, will not stop the agitation of Biafra, end of quote. He further argues that the detention of Uwazurike between 2005 to 2007 helped to radicalize his followers. The same thing happened when the leader of Boko Haram was killed. His followers became more radicalized. Detention of Nnamdi Kanu, I never heard of him before this time, to be quite honest. Never heard of him. I didn't even know about the IPOB or whatever thing. Until this thing, and you now realize globally it's become an issue and it's become mainstream. Now, and again, quote, he says, this book argues that the idea of a customary government under the Supreme Council of Elders in accordance with customary law enjoys the support among a section of the Igbo, but it is the Biafra or death philosophy of Nnamdi Kanu that found resonance across the length and breadth of the Igbo nation. Therefore, there cannot be a resolution of the Biafran dilemma without a wholesome engagement of the Nnamdi Kanu / Uche Mefo faction of IPOB. End of quote. That's what this was. So, if I were President Buhari, quite honestly, I would be very suspicious of anyone who advises me to ignore the Biafran issue. But the fundamental question, the fundamental issue is that this debate is not happening. This whole thing is being driven almost in a haphazard manner. Last week, they called for, was that last week? Yeah, last week. They called for a sit at home. And even without anybody getting out to more enforce and so on, I learned virtually Anambra and many other cities were completely shut down. It just tells you there is something going on. But, again, where is the elite in this? What is missing is structured debate and the apparent elite aloofness or complicity or hypocrisy. The elite in denial. For the politicians who think you can just, let's use them temporarily, let's use them. Just go on, while we can then use that to negotiate for something here. I can tell you, you will create a monster that will consume you. When that inferno comes, both us, everybody else, and the kind of thing that happened in Biafra where dissent, any dissent was considered a saboteur. Okay? You might get to a point where you will be telling them, just go on, while we can negotiate here, get something for ourselves in Abuja. I can tell you, these guys are no fools. At some point, they will look at you too and know that you're actually part of the problem. And so on and so forth. So, I say, let the debate must begin.
That is exactly what triggered or is enforcing his political ambition, his political drive. That is exactly what you heard from him. And that has been my position all this while. For those of you who are talking about Abuja politics, whereas your homeland is empty and desolate. You are all deceiving yourself. If you can't start rebuilding our homeland first, you have no business going to Abuja. Because just recently, the governors of the southeast, you can count number of them interested in going to Abuja. It is now the turn of Ndigo for Igbo presidency. Wonderful. Wonderful ambition. But how is your home state? That is the question we should be asking these people. And it is the game of the elites. Hey, it is not turn on Ndibo. It is the turn of the political elites who goes to Abuja to represent just themselves and their political associates. And this is the narrative this man had come to change. And that had been the gospel I've been preaching. Thank God, today, he had become the governor of Anambra State. And I hope every Igbo man should rally around him and give him maximum support for him to succeed. Because our freedom depends on this. Our economic freedom, our social freedom, our political freedom, even our spiritual freedom depends on rebuilding Igbo land and making it far independent to the bigger, larger, non-workable unitary federalism, the way Nigeria is structured. Until we rebuild our Igbo, particularly and by extension perhaps Biafra territory as they call it, there is no hope for our freedom. So let us give this man a chance to change the narrative. While those who want to go to Abuja, you can go. But as far as we are concerned, we are here to rebuild our homeland first. And any man who had not impacted positively to their people do not want your time and support, no matter how they sugarcoat their tongue. Let us give this man a maximum support and watch him succeed. I'm also Senior Peters. I want you to drop your comment on the comment section. Let us rally around together to make our homeland a better place. Please subscribe, like, and share. Drop your comments. Let me have your opinion on this. I'm signing out. Bye-bye.